Hey everybody, it's Virginia with 13 Design. Thanks so much for joining us here today for episode 1 of our Stick It series. And what we're going to be looking at today is we're going back to basics. And we're going to be starting off with some decoupage, some Mod Podge as the chosen medium for this particular episode. And we're going to be real basic, so we're going to start with wood, in this case bamboo. And I'm going to show you my favorite way to apply decoupage to a solid wood surface using Mod Podge. Of course, you probably have a much smaller container, but I go through this stuff like crazy. But anyway, this particular time, we're going to be using Mod Podge, and I'm going to be using the matte finish. Matte finish, you'll hear me say over and over, is my favorite finish in the Mod Podge. It comes in all different finishes. Satin would be my second favorite. I'm not a big fan of gloss, just because it's really hard to get a nice even finish without seeing a lot of the brush strokes or imperfections or maybe even just little mistakes. The matte finish hides those sort of things really easily. So if you're a beginner, I highly suggest using a matte finish. So this particular project, that's what we're going to be using, and let's get started. Okay, so first things first, you have to decide which decoupage paper design you'd like to use. I've chosen this one here, and what we're going to do with this triple-sized paper is decide which of these sizes best fits the tray that we're trying to decoupage. Once I've selected a size, I'm going to go with the smaller one here. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out just to make it a little bit easier then to size it on down to completely fit on the tray the way that I would like for it to fit. The really cool thing is this leaves 2 more designs for me on this triple print that I can use on another project later on. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this design onto the face of my tray where I'd like to place it permanently. And then I'm just going to score along the edges so I know where to cut. You can see here where I've scored along the edges of the tray. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut along where those scoring marks are. Just a little tip if you're doing a project like this with a tray that has a little bit of an edge, makes it a little bit easier for you to size it down. So I'm just going to go ahead and carefully cut it out. You can choose to tear it by using a water pen, which is a technique I will show you in another video. Or you can use a straight edge, which sometimes makes it a little bit easier to get a straight line. I'm not too concerned with that because it's going to sit down in on the tray with the edges coming up beyond. So just cutting it with scissors will suffice for this particular project. Not a big deal. But once I have this all cut out, I'm going to want to place it on the tray to see if it's where I want it and if it fits correctly. And so I speak from experience. You always want to make sure that it fits correctly. This one needs to be trimmed down just a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You don't want to get to the point where you have everything covered in glue and you realize, oh my goodness, it doesn't fit. It's too big, it's too small. So this step is really important. Don't leave it out. So as you can see, I placed it on the tray. That's where I'd like it. I have plans for the bottom space, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this ready. One other thing that I can show you in a future video. You can see here I have the paper on the tray. The tray is a light colored bamboo, so it doesn't discolor the paper too awful much. But you can see with the paper next to it, I have it laying on a white paper towel. See how the white is so much brighter? If I want to keep that bright white, I'm going to need to paint some white in order to do that. With this project, I'm not too concerned because it's a light wood. If it were a dark wood, that would come into play much more. But be sure to stay tuned. I'll have a video about that. I'm going to go ahead and add my matte finish Mod Podge. I'm going to paint the entire surface of the tray. Now, this particular design that I've chosen isn't going to cover the entire surface. That's okay. I don't mind a little bit of it sticking out beyond because I'm going to do something in the portion of the bamboo tray that is left unfinished later on. But for now, I'm just going to put a nice coat down here on the face of the tray where I'm going to stick my decoupage design. The biggest thing here is you want to make sure that they're nice, even strokes, that you have a nice, even layer. Don't want it too thick. You don't want it too thin because then it's just not going to stick. So you want to make sure there's enough glue for it to actually stick. Here you can see my layer of glue. It's a nice even layer. No lumps or bumps. Don't make sure there's no lumps or bumps because that'll read through on your paper. I'm next going to use my squirt bottle. I'm going to lay my paper on the paper towel to absorb any extra, and I'm going to spray the front and the back with some water. I'm just going to dampen the paper so that it actually expands a little. And you'll see why in a moment, why I wanted the paper to expand just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place it down on the layer of Mod Podge, again, matte finish Mod Podge, where I'd like for it to go. The water helps it adhere a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and use my fingers. I really like using my fingers to smooth it down, smooth out any lumps, bumps, bubbles. On something this size, it's not as much of a concern. On a larger decoupage piece, lumps, bumps, bubbles, that sort of thing are more of a concern. You can also use the scraper if you don't have nails to go in along the edge, kind of push it in there, and it works really well. Now I'm going to hit it with the heat gun. You can use a hair dryer. As it is drying, it is going to shrink back and tighten up in the space where I want it to be. This is why I wanted the water to expand the design, because then it will shrink back and really adhere nicely. I'm going to constantly use my fingers to check for, again, lumps, bumps, wrinkles, and make sure everything's nice and smooth, and gently rub over top of it. Now I'm going to add a top coat of the matte finish Mod Podge. This is where it comes into play that it's a matte finish. I won't really see any of the brush strokes, any of my mistakes. Yes, I make mistakes still. And I'm just going to put a nice thin coat over the top of the design. This will seal it up really nice and leave, like I said, a nice finish on it with the matte finish. If you're using satin finish, you'll have a little bit more of a gloss to it. That's okay. Satin finish is also pretty forgiving. Gloss finish is where it gets a little tricky. You want to make sure you seal up the edges, go along the edges here, seal it up real nice. We're doing one coat. If it's a high traffic area, something that's going to get scratched and used a lot, you're going to want to do 2 coats. Real important, just so it wears nicely and it doesn't hurt your design at all. So you can go ahead and do a second coat if that's what you prefer. So here we are. This is my favorite way to decoupage. Thanks for watching. Happy creating!